Okay, just to let you know that this is going to be recorded. You probably know, those of you who've been before, that we record all our GeogLive sessions and they are available on YouTube after the event. So GeogLive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 are already available on our YouTube, and later in the week, GeogLive 10, the session we're recording today, will be available for you as well. Hi Lauren, nice to see you coming in from Worcestershire there. And Nicola from Manchester, hi. Please do put any comments or questions you have in the chat as the session unfolds. Right, it is a couple of minutes past 5, and as always, we've got a lot to do, so I'm going to make a start and other people can join us as they do. Well, this is a formal welcome. Welcome to the new school year, 21st of September. I know you'll all be well into the year by now, getting to know your new classes. As I've already said, we are recording this today on YouTube. So we would ask you please to keep your cameras off and to mute while we are in the input sessions, and then by all means put them back on later on when we get to Q&A. The chat function is there. We've already asked you to put in who you are and where you're joining us from today. And I can see quite a lot of people have already done that. Please do, if you haven't already said who you are and where you're from, please do put that in the chat. We will all be here the whole session. In fact, there will be some other primary experts here as well to answer questions if you've got any, so put those in the chat too. And if you have any feedback, then by all means, please contact us on Twitter. You can see our Twitter handle there. So this is the schedule for today. My name's Julia Tanner. For those who don't know me, I'm a member of the Early Years and Primary Committee. And today we're bringing you 5 ways to boost primary geography. It's unusually, this session of GeogLive is done entirely by the GeogLive team. So I'm very pleased to introduce to you Kate. Kate works in Birmingham in ITE, and she is talking about using your local area and thinking about improvements that could be made to it. Anthony works in Roehampton at the university there. He's talking about using Street View and mental mapping. Jen is talking about messy maps and models, and she is is it year 3 or year 4 now, Jen? I've forgotten. Yeah, she's a year 4 teacher. Steve Rawlinson is talking about using images, taking photographs in your immediate local area and using the Worldwise materials, which he collates every year. And then later on, towards the end of the session, we'll have John Cannell, who's a staff member at the Geographical Association, talking about the various resources that we have available to support all of you in progressing geography in your school. So that's the schedule. We've got a few dates for your diary. These are the GeogLive dates for the rest of the year. They're now going to be a couple of weeks after a holiday or a half term. So the next one is on November the 11th, November the 16th, and that will be on geography in the early years foundation stage curriculum. Then in January, we're focusing on climate change and sustainability. The date there is the 18th of January. Then in the spring, we're moving into teaching about place. Our first session is on the 8th of March. We will be focusing on teaching local to global place then. And then we're picking up the same theme when we come back in May for GeogLive 14, teaching place, avoiding a single story. And then we're going to finish the year in June, GeogLive 15, talking about using books to support children's learning in primary geography. And a couple of other dates there for you. In the bottom left-hand corner, the Charney Manor Primary Geography Research Weekend will be on towards the end of February, as it usually is. And there's a contact there, Melanie Norman, who will be interested to hear from you if you would like to join us. I believe there are a few places left. And then, of course, we have the full Geographical Association annual conference, 13th to 15th of April, to be held in Sheffield this year. And it will again be a hybrid conference. That should be Sheffield and online, not Guildford and online. Okay, thank you very much. So that's the schedule. And now I'm going to hand over to Steve, who's going to talk to you about the latest issue of Primary Geography, due out any day now. Steve.
Thank you very much, Julia. Well, I hope you like this, the cover of this exciting edition of PG. I don't know whether you can guess what it actually is, but this will be available next week, and printed copies will be dropping through your door in the next couple of weeks. It's a very exciting issue because it focuses on hidden geographies and aims to reveal the hidden treasures of primary geography, demonstrating how it's a bit of a golden thread that entwines all other subjects within a broad and balanced curriculum. So we hope you'll find it incredibly useful. There's some wonderful articles, as you can see, that will grab your attention, particularly things like teaching about distant places, finding geography in song lyrics, finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, highlighting geography within the curriculum. All of those are available and a lot more besides. I would like, however, to just draw your attention to a special in this particular special edition, and that is at the center pages. You will find a pullout which shows the importance of geography with the early years. It offers guidance for doing wonderful and effective geography with young children, and we hope that you will find this thoughtful and informative piece, while focusing on the early years, actually helps with older children as well, because it highlights and examines big ideas and key concepts in geography education. There's a refreshing emphasis in this on child-led learning and learning environments that filters through the advice and the guidance. And we're absolutely, totally indebted to the Early Years and Primary Committee, a group of those people on that committee, for putting together what is an incredible piece of work, which I think a lot of us will be using for many years to come. It is in the center pages of the journal, so it's easy to pull it out, it's easy to share it, and we'd love you to share it with as many colleagues as you can. And more importantly, we'd love to hear how you're using it. It is a wonderful resource, and I'm sure you'll find it incredibly useful. Okay, so this will be all available next week, online next week, and the printed copies, the members will be coming through the door fairly soon. If you're not a member already, then this could be the point in time to join. It's worth joining just for the pullout.
Having seen the content of the pullout, I can confirm everything Steve says about it is absolutely fantastic. Right, I'm going to hand over to Kate. Kate, you're talking about using the local area to boost primary geography.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. So just to put it in a bit of context, so as Julia explained earlier, I work in ITE, I teach primary geography. So these are activities that I've done with my trainee teachers who are all training to teach between 3 and 11. So they're things that are easily adaptable. Our campus is on a block, so we're quite lucky in that we can send people when they walk out of campus left or right. So this was just taken place around that block. It's quite a large block. And what we've done is given our trainees, this was done with our first years, we've given them a map of the area. So already we're starting to look at map skills and can they follow the route that they have been given. But we also asked half of the group to turn left and half of the group to turn right. So we wanted to see when they got back to campus and started to look at what they found, did left or right make any difference to what they were actually finding, and did they notice different things because of the direction that they were approaching in. So at each point on the map, so they're reading the maps, there were a series of numbers that they were undertaking. So each number had a different task, and these are some of the tasks that we were asking our trainees to take part in, but also looking at how the place has developed over time. It's got a range of different buildings that we're surrounded by. Some are older, some are really new. So we've got that range of different architecture. So if I just jump to the architecture one at the start, so down at the bottom right, there were lots of different styles of building on our block, and that's something that you can look at wherever your school's based. So what kind of architecture can you see? What kind of buildings are there? we've got a lot of different styles. It's been built up over different times, so we can see a lot of different styles of architecture, but also then talking about what that tells you about the place. So did it all develop at the same time? Are they all the same age of buildings that we're looking at? What different time periods are represented? Has any of the buildings changed over the time? So has any had different additions put on? If you're mostly in a suburban area with a lot of houses or homes, have they had porches put on, or have they had any extensions built? So are the houses or the homes looking similar to what they were built? We've got a whole range of different styles we can look at, so we're able to look at how the place has developed. But even if you're in a relatively new area, that can still be an area that an aspect that you can look at. If we look back at the top left, so found patterns, different patterns that it was looking at on the walk. That was a task particularly set to a local church that we saw. So looking at the stained glass windows in particular, but again, any patterns that they were noticing. So are they man-made or natural? Were they meant to be decorative of the area, or is it just something that's functional but also creates a pattern? The developing place, and that's the tally chart as well that aligns to that. So looking at the building use, as I said, we've got quite a lot of old buildings, and a lot of them were built as homes but are now offices or doctors' surgeries or hotels. But again, even if you haven't got those older buildings, have shops changed purpose, or have the other buildings changed what they're being used for? And then we've got the tally on the top, so looking at what purpose it was, and that was looking at hotels and how many hotels there were, or how many offices there were. So that was that aspect. And then the last one on this was the finding nature. We are in the middle of Birmingham, so we're in a very built up area, but it's also really very green. I don't know if you can see the picture I put behind that block, but that was one that they were walking down, and you can see the amount of trees. I tried to blend it into the background so you can still see the text, but it's a very green area as well as being really built up. So it was a case of looking at how that vegetation has impacted on the area. So is it something that has been planned, so planted trees, and is that in private gardens, or is that on the street, or is it opportunistic? So is it weeds growing? And what has the vegetation done to that location over time? So when the trees were planted, what would the place have looked like then? Or if you've got new plants, so if you've got new buildings, can you imagine what that's going to look like in the future? So those are some of the tasks that we were asking our trainees to do, and a whole range of things beside that we were looking at. Those are just a few examples. Okay, thank you, Anthony. So the next one was looking at the journey to school that people would take. Okay, thank you. So this is a case of getting children to remember where they've been. So can they recall their journey to school? And this was a case of drawing it down. So can they draw the map? If children had a particularly long journey, we would just have drawn the last part of it that is common to everyone. So the bit where they actually arrive at school. So asking children, where they went, what they saw and what stood out to them, and drawing a map of that journey that they took. And then looking at their own map and thinking, what do they actually make note of? And when we've done that with our trainees, obviously some of them are driving, some of them are coming by bus or by train, and asking them, however they arrived, what did they see different things? So luckily, the people who were driving did tend to notice when there were traffic lights, which was quite reassuring. People who were on a bus tended to notice where the bus stops were. So did different things jump out depending on how people were traveling as well? But also, what did they notice in particular? So there was something that particularly caught people's attention, and finding out what was important to individuals in that way. Okay, Anthony, could you change slide, please? Thank you. And then building on from children remembering and being able to create their own maps, were there anything that concerned them? So when we've done that, and I've done this with a range of different groups, there were aspects like graffiti or aspects like litter or safe places to cross the road. and what could we do about them? If we were in charge of that area, what would we want to do to address that? And what we have done, thinking particularly about aspects like litter, is design characters. It was either superheroes or imaginary characters that could tackle it and how they could tackle that. So what kind of superpowers would these characters have? Would they be able to get rid of all the litter in the area? So looking at what children want, how they wanted to develop the area and improve the area, and what they thought needed to be done to address that through creating their characters. Okay, and that's me done. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate, very much indeed. I just love your idea of creating a super character who can do something about the litter or the mess in the park or the graffiti. I just think that's a fabulous idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to pass over to Anthony now, who's talking about using Street View and mental mapping.
Thanks, Julia. Afternoon to you all. I'm going to be talking through with you the idea of spatial cognition. And this might be something that scares you, might be something that's a worry to you because it is in the Ofsted research review, but actually it can be something that you can manage to conceive of when you're working with early years Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. We're going to do a quiz shortly, so be ready to use the chat. I really want you to judiciously use the chat. There's going to be 26 opportunities to take part, so have your fingers and typing fingers ready. So spatial cognition, from the quote from Blout in 1991, spatial cognition is cognition of the macro environment, not the microenvironment. It's of large places, not small objects. So what we're trying to do with children sometimes is trying to teach them about where they're near, like what Kate's just been talking about, what they can see, where they are, but we also need to try and give them this bigger picture of the world, this macro view. You've probably heard those words, haven't you? Micro and macro. And my suggestion here is that we use things like Street View, Google Street View, that I have advocated several times before. And if we use that judiciously when we're thinking about how to give them a sense of place, how to give them a sense of, for example, the UK in this instance, and flood those images into the children's classrooms and show them lots of different ones and get them talking about them and getting very excited about what they can see, what they can spot, what they can read, the numbers and the words, and whether they can describe the landscape. If we build this up over time, the children will have a better sense of what places and spaces are like, and the fact that they can name and label things within them. So I mentioned that this is an idea that's in the Ofsted Research Review, which you may have looked through, and it may have scared you when you first looked at it. And I've just picked out this one quote from that, and I'm just going to read this to you, because they suggest that when identifying content to teach, it's important that pupils are able to consider scale and have the ability to zoom in and zoom out in order to view the processes and their impact from local and regional and national and international perspectives. So it's this idea that we've got to give them this sense of place at a range of different scales that is a big challenge for us, certainly as we move through the different age phases that we've got. And what they suggest is that this draws on the concept that we've got to get over to them, that places are connected, places are similar, places are different. And we've got to get pupils asking questions. For example, where is this place? Why is this place here and not there? What is it like? And how did it get to be like this? And that's where I think Street View can really help. And I'm going to show you some examples of that. And they conclude in the final paragraph by saying, drawing pupils' attention to scale and into relationships, using maps in all subjects gives pupils a visual representation that fosters this spatial thinking, this spatial cognition. So let's try a quiz. What I'm going to do to try and show you what I mean by spatial cognition in relation to the UK, so this could relate to Key Stage 1 teaching, could relate to Key Stage 2 teaching. I'm going to show you a series of images, often 3 on a page, and I want you to use the chat to try and tell me where you think these places are. So we've got there at the top left, somewhere beginning with A. And I wonder if anybody could have a look at the image, use your kind of adult knowledge of where you think that that might be in relation to somewhere beginning with A. So I'm going to wait for somebody to type in. Let's see if people can spot the stone, the granite. Yeah, the streetscape. Is this similar to where you are? So 2 good guesses there from Dave and Tracy, and that's absolutely right. So the first one is A. How about B? Have a look at B. What are you seeing? What are you seeing there? Can you see that shingly beach? Can you see what looks like a theatre, a promenade in the background? Can you see the word? Oh, Esplanade. Oh, lots of guesses for Bognor. Great, fantastic. Not Brighton on this case, Dawn. Have a look at C then. We've got long plinths of slate. We've got words on the building. What looks like a copper box. Again, quite a synonymous image of a significant building in that capital city of Wales in Cardiff. Well spotted. So moving on, let's have a look at these. Any guesses about these? Starting off with D. A bit harder, this one. Anybody know anything about the A887? Hills in the distance, single track roads, ferns. This is somewhere called, and forgive me for the pronunciation here, Dalcreachart in Inverness Shire. Again, this was a bit of a Googling around because I'm trying to show you different locations in the UK. We've been to places in the south and we're going north here. So that's Dalcreachart in Scotland. How about E? Have a look at E. Pretty ordinary streetscape, but you've got the magic word seaside road there. I really loved that one. Where in the world, where in the UK might you have E? Any guesses there? Tracy, you're on fire. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, Eastbourne, quite right. How about F there? Again, not seaside this time, but beach road, somewhere beginning with F. And if you notice on the road past the Rowan Centre, you've got slow, but then you've got another language, Araf. Wonder which country that could be in. Again, comparing and contrasting the hills, maybe. You've got some sort of level crossing there as well. And that's actually somewhere in Gwynedd in Wales called Fairbourne. I'd never heard of it either. And sometimes these places, it's important for the children to know about them. They're small places, they're large places, but also sometimes it's quite important for them just to hear about places that they could perhaps spot on a map or on an atlas. And I'm suggesting maybe that this sort of activity could be done with children having maps in front of them, maybe in front of laptops, looking at Google Maps, looking at a range of different indexes maybe to try and find out possibilities, because it is possibility thinking that we're trying to tap into here. So I've given you a bit of thinking time there. G, any ideas there? Anybody know anything? Hopefully you're Googling the B6430. Where does that go through? Keyword there, Wyersdale Road. So Wyersdale Close there. I wonder if anybody knows anything about Garstang in the northwest of England. That's where that one's from. H there, very different stone, a much more yellow sandstone environment there, very different from the grey that we saw in Aberdeen in Scotland. Anybody guess that one? Some possible guesses there. Not far from Hebden Bridge, Julia. It's Holmfirth. Yeah, absolutely. I. Anybody guess I on the bottom right? Again, just look. This is one UK, but yet so many contrasting environments, so many different seasons. This is further south than Inverness, Ipswich. Tracy, I think that was right. Yeah, absolutely right. Some really good guesses. Okay, on to J, having a look at J. So again, lots of locational knowledge built into this. Close clipped grass, I'd want the children to be spotting. I'd want them to be reading the road. I'd want them to be thinking about the types of homes and houses as well. J is actually near Guildford, and you can see a signpost there to Guildford, and Styfield there, and it's somewhere called Jacob's Well, apparently. Definitely is something I'd want to know more about and kind of find out a little bit more about that. K a little bit more easily spotted there. If you know anything about Airedale, where in the world that is, maybe Pride of Punjab would put you off a little bit. But K, any ideas there? Keighley. That's Keighley. L, moving on quickly. Obviously, there are lots of interesting things to spot there. Different type of home, thatched cottage. Definitely a single track road there. One car only would get through there. You've got the telegraph poles there and the steep banking. Any guesses there for L. It's somewhere in Essex, and that's somewhere called La Marche. So again, something about the place name etymology there that I'd perhaps want to tap into and know a little bit more about. On to M. Nice contrasting buildings there. Again, I'm doing all the talking. That's sometimes perhaps what we need to do with children, isn't it? We need to kind of talk about these images. We need to draw their attention to these particular streetscapes. You've got Middlesbrough there with its 1960s buildings compared and contrasted to the late Victorian ones. How about N? How about N? Anybody guess that one? Anybody work out what's going on in that image? You've got a road that stops and then a bit of a gap for the water. And then you've got a road that carries on over the other side. And somewhere apparently in Northern Ireland, I'm trying to cover the whole of the UK, New Ferry. The place really does say what that location is and what's happening there. Sticking with Northern Ireland, it's pretty easy to guess, but what an amazing image from Street View, that one. You've got the community house of Omagh in Northern Ireland, but then you've got two bridges. You've got that water course, I presume it's a river, and then in the background you've got that quite towering church or cathedral. P, quickly guessed by lots of people in the chat. Thank you for taking part, everybody. P, yeah, guessed the Spinnaker Tower in Portsmouth. Q, this is quite a good one. I've walked these hills. This is somewhere you might recognize, but look at the contrast though here. Great to have images back to back next to each other. Dry stone walls as opposed to quite severe concrete defences against the sea in R. Any guesses for Q and R? Q is Cormer, Quernmore, Cormer near Lancaster, and it's quite a special part of the world there. And then R, any guesses for R? Anybody got any thoughts about that? I think I've seen images of somebody on this beach who's on this call, on this very beach in the last few days. Anybody guess where that one is? Redcar. There, that's Redcar Beach. Going on to somewhere else in the UK here, S. Anybody guess this one? There's two possible S's for this one. Again, the contrast between the different sea, the different sky, the different seasons, different types of parking, different types of A roads, different types of building materials. There's such a lot in these images that if I was working at a much slower pace with children, I'd be wanting to pick out. This is Shetland. This is Scalloway in Shetland. And moving on to T, if I get my alphabet in the right order. T, here we've got, have a look at the words there, Pentland Crescent, and I presume the Pentland Hills in the distance. Anybody guess that one? That's Thurso. And then U, right at the other end of the country. Again, different types of building style. High street, not like a high street near me. That's somewhere in Devon. That's somewhere called Ulfcombe, which is between the far north of the country and the south coast in Devon. Okay, V, we're almost there. Anybody guess where this is? On the A5. Very interestingly named place here. The A5 apparently is 252 miles long. Goes from London to the Irish Sea at the port of Holyhead. And this is somewhere called, I don't know if that's right, Kate, in terms of spelling, but this is somewhere called Valley. Or that's certainly the English spelling anyway, Valley. Okay, W, another high street. What a contrast between the other high street. Traditional market town, all sorts of things we could say about that. Certainly not a retail park. Red brick, think about the different colours of bricks we've seen, even in this small number of images. This is called Wainfleet All Saints. Now, if you can think of any X's, we were talking about this before we started. So maybe there's a Xavier College near you. Maybe there's all sorts of other places, but you can think of any X's, do please put it into the chat. Y, moving on, pretty obvious there, but again, different streetscape, different types of buildings, different uses, again, by the coast, the Y of Yarmouth. And finally, Z, there is a Z. Zeal Monacorum, apparently, is a village and parish in mid-Devon, which is 18 miles northwest of Exeter. And I could tell you lots more about that. But just to finish off then, I'm encouraging here for you to think about using Street View, to use Instant Street View. There's various other places you can get the Street View data from, and to compare and contrast it with aerial views, with maps, with what the children know in their locality. Remember that the problems with Street View, these are views from the roads. They ignore anything behind the facade. And there's been a lot of facades here, haven't there? Lots of buildings. And they may well give a false sense of location. And that's interesting to build up a concept of with children. Think about the child's perspective. Don't forget the Street View car, you can see there, it's 2.5 meters up in the air. It's more like the view from a HGV or an intercity train. So is this a fair view? Is this a human scale or a child scale view? And this is just one snapshot, isn't it? It's quite nice to sometimes go change hunting if you're using Google Street View Time Machine. And if you're not sure how to use that, I've shown that in previous GeogLives. It's a way to do preparatory field work. It's a way to do pre-visit. Street View is such a wonderful resource that's there for us and covers many places beyond the UK, around the world. And it's definitely a way that we can start to consider journeys as well as destinations. And it may be worth as well to compare to Microsoft Bing's StreetSide, which is a different way of finding this data, compare and contrast between the two. They may have been taken in different years and different seasons. So I'd love to hear if you managed to use that. Thank you for taking part of those people that have done. And we'll move on, Julia, to the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anthony. It's really good to be reminded of how incredibly varied the UK landscape is, built and natural. That's just amazing. Thank you very much. Okay, Jen, moving on to you. Messy mapping.
Yes, so a little bit of context. I am a year 4 teacher at the moment. I was year 3 for the year before that, year 4 before that. So basically the same. And today I'm going to give you a couple of ideas for outcomes that aren't based on literacy ability or a paper map or writing something in a book, hopefully. So my first one, messy maps. So these are some examples that our year 2 children did of landmarks in Africa, in the outdoor area. So they'd done a little bit of work before this about physical landmarks and human landmarks and finding them in maps, in atlases. And then they went outside and they were given some chalk, various bits of equipment, some labels, and one class in the middle had photos as well. And they had to create their landmark map of Africa. So these outlines are actually the year 2 children's outlines that they drew, which better than I've ever been able to draw of Africa, if I'm honest. And they've used some deans here for the Niagara Falls. Some of them actually used a bit of water as well. We've got some soft toys for the Masai Mara. I think there was a temple involved. And it was really about them applying their knowledge in a different context, which also enables your SEN children to access, and it enables maybe those children that don't like literacy-based tasks. And it's just another way of getting that knowledge to be sticky in their brains. Their next step was then moving on to actually making some paper maps, and they also came up with their own keys. So actually having equipment to represent the landmark then made them think about, how could I do that in pictorial form? So I've just put there down the side some top tips. If you make it touchable, lots of different textures, shapes, 3D, all those kind of things will get your children engaged, especially those children that perhaps are not the most enthusiastic learners. It's applying your knowledge in lots of different ways. It's a really good little mini assessment piece, so you can really see, actually, okay, this child struggles to read, but they know exactly where it is because they're looking at shapes and things like that on the maps. As I said there, it doesn't always have to be a written outcome, because, as we know, not all children are engaged with their writing. Again, this is aimed at Key Stage 1, but you could definitely adapt this for Key Stage 2. The children loved it, they remembered lots and lots about it, and the teachers also really enjoyed teaching it, which is always a bonus, isn't it? So that's just a little bit about messy maps there. And then on the next one, I think we've got, so models that aren't DT. So we all know Ofsted have been around recently going, but that's a DT outcome, that's not geography. You can still do some fun stuff and have a geography outcome. So in year 4 and a mixed year 3-4 cohorts, we've made models of the rainforest and models of the structure of the earth. The models of the rainforest, you can see there, I have my very dusty version I made a while ago. It's actually made from the lid of your paper from the photocopier room, or you can cut a cereal box in half. And this is an outcome of all the knowledge they've learned about the different layers of the rainforest. So they start by learning about the layers, what animals live there, what it's like. We play a game where you read them a fact and they have to give a different action for which layer. They then draw a big diagram on big flip chart paper in pairs of the different layers. Again, what animals live there, writing on any facts that they remember. And then they finally go into making these, we say, accurate models, as accurate as one can be in year 4, where they have to make sure they get the animals correct for the levels. So you've got forest floor, your emergent, your understory, and your canopy. The trees are the right height, and they also write little facts on if they're able. What's really lovely about this task is, again, if your children are not like, they don't want to write, basically, or your SEN children, they can still input in this activity. And the conversations and the discussions that you hear are often fantastic. And often you're like, I did not know that child knew so much about it, because maybe, you know, just in a normal lesson or a more conventional lesson, they're not giving as much input. Here you can really see the children come alive, learn what they like. They've accomplished something. We then went on for our able children. They used that model to help them write a fact file. And then children that weren't able to do that literary outcome, they didn't have to do it because they were able to talk about it to you. And there we can see our next one is the models of the earth, which I got from Stephen Scotham and Paula Owen's fantastic book, Teaching Primary Geography. So thank you. But here, again, we learned some information about the structure of the earth, and then they had to go at making those models you can see there. So again, it was about getting the right length of clay, rolling it out to be the right thickness. And we chopped it in half, which is why they're a bit squashed, because we don't have sharp knives in school for understandable reasons. So they did get a bit squashed. And then from that model, they were able to then actually label the diagram you can see behind and write a fact, because using the models, they were telling their partners the facts that they could remember. And it really prompted their learning, which we then put on display. Fantastic from our TA idea. She painted a box blue and we stuck it on the wall, and they didn't actually fall off, which was amazing. So again, some key hints down the side there. It's applying the knowledge in lots of different ways so that it sticks. Again, doesn't always have to be a written outcome. It allows your SEN to access the curriculum and produce an actual outcome, which they can take pride in, they can feel accomplished, they can feel like they've learned. Just make sure it's a geographical outcome, so not DT or arts. So for the boxes, they had to create an accurate model of the layers of the rainforest. It wasn't about, can you make a 3D tree, or, you know, paint a pretty tree. And then again, with the models of the earth, it was trying to depict an accurate model, so you're getting the correct thicknesses. And when you're planning activities like this, just the main key thing to remember is what knowledge or what skill do you want them to retain or learn. If you have that in your brain, you can make these activities meaningful, worthwhile, and not just, you know, one of those lovely, pleasant activities we like doing, but maybe Ofsted tell us off. And that was a very quick whip through a couple of ideas I have had or used effectively in my class. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Absolutely fantastic to be reminded that children can represent what they know and can do in more ways than writing it down in a book. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. And congratulations to your children on those beautiful models. Lovely. Okay, Steve, can I pass over to you now? You're going to talk about using photography.
Yep, various things, Julie. I've got two things I want to talk about, some resources that you may have not yet found, and also some thoughts about looking at everyday objects in the school grounds. Next slide, please, Anthony. So let's think about exploring our school to begin with. These ideas suggest some ways you can get your children, particularly the younger age groups, to explore their school using photographs of the building. So you can go out and take some pictures of the school grounds and particular parts of the school grounds, and the children can then go out and try and find those particular features. And you can make this as hard or as easy as you want to. What's particularly nice about it is that, of course, once they've got the idea, they can then turn this into some kind of treasure hunt, and they can start taking, if you've got the cameras, etc. available, you can then start to get them to make their own treasure hunts and get their friends to go out and do the same thing. It's almost infinite in how you can set this up. So that's a very straightforward sort of idea. Next slide, please, Anthony. But we could start to make it a little bit more specifically geographical, in the sense of, I don't think geographers are always about observing, they're always looking. So we don't often, we need to encourage children to look up. So why not have a look up trail? Okay, so you go out and the photographs this time are all looking up, and you have to find these particular features up in the air, as it were. Again, there's your theme for your treasure hunt, the theme of looking up. Next slide, please, Anthony. So obviously there's going to be one which is looking down. Let's go and see if we can find these features. And I don't know whether, you know, how often do children look at what they are actually walking on, but there's some important features of the landscape that they walk on without even thinking about it, particularly these things, drain covers. They're really interesting in terms of shape. I mean, just think about the mathematical shapes you're starting to see in that particular set of photographs. There are different textures. There are often names on them. There are places named on them. You can start to trace where the drain cover came from. And of course, there's a host of hidden geography behind drains. That's where the water goes. The water that would normally lands on the playground, where does it go to when it goes down the drain? Where's the train go? So there's all sorts of little questions that you can come up with that particular activity. Next slide, please, Anthony. And then another way of taking them out and getting them to look at their local environment and using photographs, etc., is to think about boundaries. Now, the boundaries that you find in the grounds offer a whole range of ideas about how objects in the landscape relate to each other. And it can lead on to issues, to some difficult issues if you start to approach it. So where are these different textures next to each other? Why have you got these different textures next to each other? Why doesn't the concrete carry on? Why doesn't the grass carry on? So the boundaries are really quite significant features in the landscape. And why? So we need to think about, why do we have boundaries? And if you start to think about that, you can start then to look at, well, why do we have boundaries between countries? What happens when you cross a boundary? And so you can begin to build in the ideas behind those difficult issues of, why do people move from one place to another? So it's just the idea of a boundary that they can relate to, the younger children can relate to, then being translated up into a wider context. Next one, please, Anthony. And I love this one. This is always a favourite. Can they go and stand where you stood when you took this photograph? And it's much more difficult than it first appears. And again, you can make it as easy or as difficult as you want to do. But it's a great way of getting children to place themselves in a specific spot. And with all of these, I find it really useful if they can also get them to mark where they are or where the feature is on a map. So this is an opportunity to start marking features on a map. And again, you get the children to take photos for their friends and see if they can find where they were. I find the younger children particularly enjoy doing this activity. This is something they really enjoy. So one of the things I'd say about those few ideas is that they're great ways of giving children that are new to the school the opportunity via practical activities to get familiar with their school. It's a great way of getting them out and getting them familiar with an environment that actually is quite alien to them when they come in. It also gives them a greater appreciation of what their school has. And so you start to build up a little bit of the sense of place, that this school is their place. So that's just a few ideas of using it in the schoolyard. Next slide, please, Anthony. So that takes me on to the resource set that you may or you may not have found on the GA website. I will put the link to the website in the chat in a few moments. Every year, the Worldwise team produces a set of resources for schools to use, themed about the presidential theme of that year, during Worldwise Week. And the week takes place in the 3rd week of June. So this year we focused on Alan Parkinson's theme of everyday geographies, which worked really, really well. We had a lot of success with that particular theme. Next one, please, Anthony. Now, there are a whole host of resources that maybe you've never found linked to Worldwise Week. So if you go to that website, there are resources available to everybody. This is not behind a paywall. Anybody can access these resources. There are literally resources to every age phase, from the early years right through to the A-level years, for each of the Geographical Association's presidential themes. So you've got compassionate geographies, you've got geography really matters, celebrating geographies, real world geographies, inclusive geographies, making geographical connections. All of those themes have got a set of resources behind them. And if you go to that particular website, you'll be able to pick those up and just download them and use them whenever you can. So I would just encourage you to use them. This year's resources for Alan's theme, we use the school environment, the local area, and the wider world. And there's a whole host of resources there to encourage children to discover the stories behind the features that they usually take for granted. So, for example, there's a Can You Find set of resources looking at post boxes, something that, again, we take entirely for granted, but have got an amazing geographical basis behind them, and My Global Connections. So there's a set of resources there, freely available to everybody, that you can use, that I think will boost your geography in your school very well. Okay, thanks, Julia.
Thank you, Steve. And I can really recommend these worldwide resources. They are utterly fantastic resources, all free. Anybody can use them. They don't need to be a member of the GA, right across the whole age range. It's just a mine of fantastic resources waiting for you to explore and discover. And I think somebody has put the link in the chat. Anthony, did you do that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anthony.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Can I just hand over to John now? John is going to talk about other support available from the GA for boosting geography in your school.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, sorry, my laptop was at a funny angle there. So obviously we've got a lot of stuff on the website. It's just been mentioned. There's also publications that are aimed at either boosting teacher knowledge and understanding of curriculum areas, or the pedagogy that underpins everything you're going to do in the classroom. And as GA members, you do get a discount on all of these. So they're priced individually or as sets of resources. And as a GA member, you do get quite a significant discount, as I've said. If Anthony goes to the next page, there we go. That gives an example of a non-member will be paying £22, opposed to a full member paying £16.50. For example, these CPD packs. A great way of raising the profile of geography in your classroom is, in your school, is obviously to do staff inset. And it might be you as the subject leader, not quite sure of what to do. So if you get one of these packs, I think there's now 5, and it's a growing number, sort of month by month. Then you could use that to support you to deliver a staff meeting to help support your entire staff. It's great for those of us that are maybe those of us that are non-specialists in geography. Next page, thanks, Anthony. You can become involved, again, as a GA member, you are part of the GA community, part of the geography community. So although it's fantastic that we've got some core people involved, like EYPPC, like people within headquarters, but it's also important that individual members have a voice, and ways that we facilitate that voice is, for example, to write an article for primary geography. And there's a link on this PowerPoint to enable you to do that. You might lead a session at our GA conference. You might contact Julia and lead an element of this. You know, there might be that capacity that people can contribute to things to help the whole community move on. And that's a great way, again, of raising the profile of geography within your school, because you can reflect on what you've done. Thanks, Anthony. And quality marks are a core part of how we support geography across the primary community. And this is a comment, if you just take a couple of seconds, from one of the schools that submitted for a quality mark last year. And each of the schools, and last year there was 94 schools that applied for the quality mark. Each of the schools leaves us a statement similar to this about the impact the quality mark has had on the school. And I would say that about half of them would state that it raises the profile generally of geography within the school. And I think that's a really important part of what the quality mark is. But also, I would say about half of them comment about the process, the way that it's helped develop the geography across the year, partly because of that raised profile, but partly because the sort of thinking it stimulates, the sorts of monitoring it pushes and nudges forward. So I think doing the quality mark is about getting the certificate and saying we're a good geography school, but actually it's more about the process and the key indicators that are provided that get you thinking about how you could move the geography on in your school, as is illustrated by that quote there. I think we've got one more page, Anthony. Just a generic, lots of links through to the quality mark, and I'm sure Julia will pick up on this page as I hand back to her.
Thank you, John. As ever, it's really helpful to have your input, reminding everybody what the GA can do for you. I'd just like to emphasise John's message about getting involved with the GA. There are lots of ways you can be involved with the Geographical Association as a member. It's not expensive to join. You get a wealth of, and access to a wealth of materials and support through doing it. And I am always interested, we are always interested at GeogLive to hear about exciting work you're doing in your classroom and keen to share it. So if you have exciting things you would like to share, then please do go back to the slide earlier on about what we're covering this year and let us know if you've got something that you'd like to share with us. So you'll have noticed that today we focus very much on using the local area, because for most people it is the easiest way to boost geography in their primary school. So we've had examples of using the local area in terms of thinking how it can be improved. We'd had examples of thinking about using Street View locally and beyond your immediate locality. Steve gave us some wonderful ideas about using photography just in your school grounds. There's an absolute wealth of possibilities there. And of course, Jen reminded us of the importance of using other ways of children representing what they know, can do and understand. They don't have to write everything down. They can show us in lots of different ways what they can do. And do have a look at those Worldwise materials. They are great. Thank you, Anthony. This is the list of topics we're planning to cover through the rest of this academic year. We're very keen to hear from anybody who would like to share some work with us. We know that one of the things people who attend these sessions particularly value is looking at examples of classroom practice. So if you've got some of those, please do get in touch. We'll be very pleased to hear from you. So it's very nearly time to finish. I've not been monitoring the chat myself, but can anybody who has been monitoring the chat tell me, are there any questions that we or issues that we should be addressing now? Please do put your cameras back on now. We're into the last few minutes. So if you'd like to put your camera on, please do. Nice to see who's here. I can recognise some familiar faces there. Lovely to see you, Tracy. Lovely to see you, Dave. Really nice to see some names I recognise, even though I can't see the people at the moment. But please do put your camera on if you'd like to. Somebody from the rest of the GeogLive team, are there any questions that have been raised that we could be answering now? Steve, you're muted. I think you were answering. No. Okay.
I can see, Julia, nothing that I can see.
Okay, thank you. I can see that people have once again been putting in some of the useful resources. Please do take the opportunity to look back through the chat before we turn it off, because I can see there are examples there of some of the resources we've used. There's the book by Stephen Scoffham and Paula Owens, which is absolutely fantastic. There's also all the worldwide materials that you can look at, and all the books that John recommended that the GA published themselves. Lots of materials there. There's a list of the themes for Worldwise for the last few years, which you might like to look at. There might be something there which is particularly relevant for you at this moment in school. And of course, as always, we'd be really pleased for you to give us some feedback. So Anthony has posted a message at 5:54 posting the form. If you'd like to give us some feedback on this session, that would be great. Thank you very much. We're very interested in what you think about it, what you like, and what we can do to improve. So do let us know what you'd like to do. And I think, unless there's anybody raising any questions now, sorry, I'm just myself glancing through the chat. Don't think there's anybody raising anything. So thank you all very much indeed for coming. It's great to see so many people here today. Remember that the date of our next session is the 16th of November, 5 o'clock, and we will be focusing on early years, and we will be drawing very heavily on that fantastic pull-out supplement that's in primary geography that will be available online next week, or alternatively, if you're a member, it will be dropping through your letterbox in the next few days. So can I thank the GeogLive team, as always, for their fantastic work. Thank you, Anthony, Jen, Steve, and Kate. You'll have noticed that Sophie's not with us today. Sophie is away on a residential this week, but I know she's very busy at the moment and I'm not watching this. So it's great to have you all here. Thank you very much indeed.